Good afternoon, Guernsey, and welcome to the 80th celebration of our very own special day, Liberation Day 2025. My name's Luke. I'll be providing your commentary for today's cavalcade. So far today, the military vehicles, they started off at Les Vaugras campsite, just outside of Lille on Guernsey's west coast. They passed through to the coastline and headed round, heading north towards Pembroke. That's where they were joined by the vintage cars and the tractors. Now, very soon we will be gracing the streets of St. Peter Port with pedestrians, floats, the petit train, the twinkle bus with that wartime generation of passengers, the military vehicles, those old and vintage cars, and, of course, the tractors. After heading towards Pembroke, they headed around Guernsey's north and head towards the east coast, where they have been making their way around in that sunshine. What a glorious day Guernsey has. Welcome to Liberation Day 2025, celebrating 80 years of freedom from the German occupation and the grips of the Nazi regime. Here we see the pedestrians leading their way around the Weybridge roundabout. Leading the way is Roger Lepage, a sailor, Ella Bilabert, land girl, Emily Lepage, an evacuee, and civilian Heidi Lepage. We've got the civilian observer corps just after that as they make their way around the Weybridge roundabout and head down Guernsey's main town seafront road. Spectators filled the streets earlier as Guernsey celebrated and commemorated those years of freedom since the end of the occupation. Now they've parted across, giving space for the pedestrians, for the tractors, for the military vehicles, and for everyone that's taking part in the celebrations today. Looking down the town seafront, I can see flags waving with passion and excitement for Guernsey's very own special day. Whatever you've been up to so far on Liberation Day, I hope you've had a wonderful time with those friends and family that you hold dear. It's a proper way to commemorate the 80 years of freedom that Guernsey has enjoyed since enduring the German occupation. Shortly, we'll also be joined by the Hurricane and the Harvard, completing 2 clockwise laps of the island, and the aircraft will be approaching St. Peter Port from the north. As you can see, the procession of pedestrians, the service members, and islanders who endured occupation, deportation, and evacuation. They're making their way down the seafront now, past the boathouse, and past the hordes of Guernsey's public, waving flags and celebrating Liberation Day the way it should be celebrated. If you haven't made it to St. Peter Port yet today, I would urge you to do so. There is so much going on. There's an absolute hive of activity. If you have fond memories of Liberation Day from yesteryears and packing the streets of St. Peter Port, this might give you a little flavour of those old celebrations. Alongside the civilian observer corps, we also have Rob Swinney, a WW2 World War II era RAF bomber pilot and navigator. Girl Guiding Guernsey, they're taking part in the procession as well, with 20 adults, 40 children, and that includes rainbows, brownies, guides and rangers. The Ace Elite cheerleaders are taking part. They're one of Guernsey's newest cheerleading teams, and today's performance on Castle Emplacement is their official debut for the island. Did you catch it? Did you enjoy it? Do let us know. If you're celebrating Liberation Day from elsewhere in the world, do feel free to let us know where from. Where are you bringing that slice of special Guernsey to on today, Guernsey's very own special day? You can see the flags waving proudly as they march down the east coast of St. Peter Port, spurred on by islanders, flag waving and proud, cheering them on. Alongside the girl guys, we've also got the Guernsey Majorettes, formed in 1992. They have 75 members and perform in Guernsey at various events throughout the summer months. And a nod to those bridges that have been built in the years since World War II, where Europe was torn apart. We're joined by the Biberach Youth Orchestra. Anyone who knows the history of our island, the history of deportation, they'll know how important and how strong those links have become in the 80 years of Guernsey's freedom. Shortly we will see the Hurricane and the Harvard blitz through our skies as they perform 2 clockwise laps of the island. If you're here in St. Peter Port, or if you're out in the gardens somewhere out west, look to the skies and listen for the roar of those engines, as they will be here in just a few moments' time. As the procession gets closer to our point here, it's palpable. You can hear the drums, you can hear the marching of feet, and you can feel the emotion bubbling inside every single person here in St. Peter Port today. Now, in the build-up to Liberation Day, in my day job as a journalist, I've spoken to someone who was evacuated across the UK. I've spoken to someone who was deported to Biberach-on-Deriz. And I've spoken to Roland Duckman, who endured all of the years of occupation here in Guernsey. I would urge you, if you have someone in your life who experienced World War II firsthand, whether it was deportation, evacuation, occupation, whatever it is, please get their story. Memories are good, all histories are better, but written and recorded histories trump even that. So please, I implore you, make sure those Guernsey histories are not forgotten. Make sure they are around, remembered, celebrated, and commemorated. As the procession gets ever closer, you can see a sea of flags being waved. Guernsey flags draped, blowing, forming parts of costumes. You can see the Ukrainian flag, the Scottish flag, allies for us all. Leading the procession and just coming into your shot, we have Roger LePage, a sailor. We have Ella LeBert, a land girl, Emily LePage, an evacuee, and Heidi LePage, a civilian. We also have the Civilian Observer Corps, which was set up in 1925. They are also celebrating 80 years, their 80th anniversary here in 2025. Listen to the sound of the drums as they stroll past us here down at Picket House, and the Hurricane and the Harvard head south and towards Guernsey's south coast. Passing us now, we have Girl Guiding Guernsey. They've offered all girls an equal sense of belonging, no matter who they are or where they're from. We have the Ace Cheerleaders coming up as well, and the Guernsey Majorettes, all celebrating the 80th anniversary of the end of the occupation. A day for commemoration. Those who gave so much to give us one of the greatest gifts of all, our freedom and our ability to celebrate days like today. Not only did they give us a reason to celebrate, they gave us everything and more. Once again, if you are listening in, tuning in, watching from somewhere abroad, and you're delivering a slice of Liberation Day further afield, please do let us know where you're tuning in from. We want to know where else in the world is sampling the delights that is Liberation Day. An applause rings out from the crowd as they continue to stroll past us here at Picket House in St. Peter Port. Shortly we will be joined by the procession of military vehicles, floats, the Petty Tran, the Twinkle Bus with those wartime generation as passengers, and of course the old vintage cars. They'll be bubbling along, booming along Guernsey's east coast currently, heading south towards our position here. Wherever you are today in Guernsey, you will no doubt be enjoying this beautiful sunshine that has graced our island. There's a little bit of a biting wind today. You can see jumpers and Guernseys out in force. But when you're in that sun, woof, it's beautiful. A beautiful day for a beautiful island on our very own special day to commemorate and celebrate. The first of the floats is going to be the Backland family. It's the travel trident that has been owned and operated here in Guernsey for over half a century by the Wilcox family. They're going to be a part of the celebrations. They said they're proud to be a part of these 80th anniversary celebrations. And in any moment now, we will be seeing the floats heading down Guernsey's east coast. Just a little bit of a safety reminder. Please do stay on the pavement. It's common sense, but do not walk out in front of the vehicles, in front of the floats. Do not step into the road when the vehicles start to arrive. And of course, keep an eye on young children. I mean, I've got poor impulse control when these vehicles go past. I want to go and see them. We need to make sure that everyone has a safe, happy, and welcoming Liberation Day. And there is a massive cheer out across the West Coast as John Randall and Jim Delbridge gee up the crowd and get them excited for the next procession. We've had the pedestrians celebrating our liberation, and now we're waiting for these floats from charities, communities, groups and families across Guernsey who've put together some amazing mobile displays to truly celebrate Guernsey's special day. We can see them here heading down towards Guernsey's south coast. A tractor being pulled with a trailer. How Liberation Day is that? A stacked trailer full of islanders celebrating and commemorating Guernsey in a way only we know how. As you can see from our aerial footage, the floats are being drawn around the Weybridge roundabout, stacked and packed with people, all cheering, smiling, celebrating. Do let us know, in the float, in the parade, in the cavalcade, what are your favourite parts? What really gets you excited to see? I do love the old vehicles, the vintage vehicles. Those old engines bubbling and belching in any way that they can. The floats beginning to make their way towards the Weybridge roundabout and down along Guernsey's eastern coast. We'll be treated to much more later on as well. We have more aerial displays coming, with Ready for Duty completing 2 clockwise laps of the island. They're on a very important mission, which is essentially giving closure to people who may not have had it for 80 years. They're doing some amazing work and flying 12,000 miles across Europe for Victory in Europe Day and for us here on Liberation Day. They'll be here due to around 10 minutes time, ready for duty, performing those 2 clockwise laps. So much time, effort has gone into making these floats, to putting on today's celebrations and commemorations. And I want to say a big thank you to anyone who's had a hand in this, whether you're a volunteer who's given up your time to make sure Guernsey celebrates its special day, whether it was your job to organise the procession, the cavalcade, or whether you're one of the many bodies here celebrating, cheering on the procession. I want to say thank you, Guernsey, because Liberation Day is a day for thanks. We can see the procession of floats leading into the military vehicles and the old classic vintage vehicles, just passing by Salary Corner here now and heading towards that Weybridge roundabout. I mentioned it earlier and I'm going to mention it again, and you'll probably get sick of me saying it, but if you have someone in your life that experienced evacuation, occupation, or deportation, please do get their stories. Please do sit down, take the time to talk to them, listen to them, and understand what they went through. Oral histories are good, as are memories, but when they're written and recorded, they last a lifetime. Let's make sure that those memories of Guernsey, let's make sure those memories of liberation live long and live forever. The procession of floats continuing its way down Guernsey's eastern coast. From here at Picket House, I can see the first of them making its way around, down past the restaurants. The Hurricane and the Harvard get a round of applause as once again they fly south, completing the second of their 2 clockwise laps of the island. Look at the old vehicle leading the procession, leading the way. Flags flying, a Union Jack, and the beautiful Guernsey flag waving in the wind as islanders who line the streets wave their flags back, celebrating liberation and the end of the occupation. The first float that we're going to see is that of the Backlund family, put together by Travel Trident. The company's been owned and operated in Guernsey for over 50 years by the Wilcox family. Ahead of today's celebrations, they let us know that they are proud to be a part of today's commemorations, celebrations, and marking the 80th anniversary at the end of Guernsey's occupation. Flags are waving, people are smiling. Soon we'll also be joined by the Critical Care PEH float, designed to be a 1940s hospital ward with the Red Cross nurses, patients and visitors. And here we can see them passing us here at Picket House. Look at those flags waving. And here's the Travel Trident's float, decorated and packed with people. The old-timey bikes in full 1940s dress, joining in on the business as the marching bands and pedestrians make their way back up north along Guernsey's eastern coast and heading back for the static displays at North Beach, Grand Pier and Albert Pier. Once again I can see the second float approaching us here at Picket House. They'll be entering your screen any moment now. Put together by Guernsey's Critical Care Princess Elizabeth Hospital unit. It's made up to be a 1940s hospital ward with the Red Cross nurses, patients and visitors. Although there are a lot more smiles today than they would have experienced during the war years. Following Critical Care, we're going to have the Guernsey Air Cadets with their mock-up of a Spitfire. And do let us know in the comments if you see a float that truly speaks to you. Let us know. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you today on Guernsey's very own special day. A penny farthing dancing around Guernsey's tarmac. I don't know how someone rides one of those without falling off personally, but that is an incredible effort. And here we see the PEH critical care float. This is a mock-up of a 1940s hospital ward filled with Red Cross nurses, patients and visitors. Flags waving, hands waving, as the Guernsey public wave back, cheer back, with smiles all abound. You see the smiles that are on the faces of people here today. You can only imagine the smiles that were on their faces 80 years ago as Guernsey experienced its first Liberation Day. Here we see the Guernsey Air Cadets with their mock-up of a Spitfire, followed by the Guernsey Scouts float, which is showcasing scouting from 1945 through to 1925. They've managed to source some past uniforms dating back from just after the war all the way through to the present day. Following the Scouts, we have the GSPCA. You should be able to see a big old bulldog entering your screen in just a moment's time as we see the Scouts passing by with various mock-ups of their Spitfighters, their Harvards. Oh, and a tractor or two as well. Where would Guernsey's Liberation Day cavalcade be without a tractor or two? Here we see the GSPCA's float, the animal van and history. It's had many challenges over its 80 years, helping the island's animals, and it felt important to join in with one of the animal ambulances with a bit of a Royal Navy Bulldog twist. Next up is the Jackson family with their self-titled Free at Last landing craft. A beautiful Union Jack with a Spitfire emblazoned on it, hangs proudly on the front, with 80 years of freedom celebrated on the side, and a donkey saying grouse. Next up we have the Lesborough Buggays and Weeks families with another landing craft, this one from 1944 D-Day landings. The effort that has gone on to making these floats truly is extraordinary, truly. Up next we've got Marsh and Staples families with the SS Vega. The vehicle towing the float is known as the Dirty Gertie by all the family, who've decided to build a landing craft from D-Day in order to get all the family and friends in, make sure everyone has a space as they commemorate and celebrate Liberation Day. Channel International Vega. Next up, we have the St John Guernsey, jointly with Ambulance and Rescue Guernsey, depicting the history of St John Ambulance in Guernsey, formed in 1940 through to right now 2025. A ripple of applause rings out from the crowd as the St John Ambulance float passes by us here at Picket House. Following that, we've got the Quibu Leo crew with Lest We Forget. A remarkable float which shows the names of Guernsey's fallen heroes. And of course, the Silver Bus, carrying passengers across Guernsey like it did all those years ago. The Petit Train making its way onto your screen now and heading past us here at Picket House. Waves and smiles from those on board. Guernsey's wartime generation being celebrated here on Guernsey's East Coast and Liberation 80. We have Guernsey Mine next, celebrating 80 years of freedom, jointly with Samaritans Guernsey there. Next up we have Barbara Croson. This float depicts the German underground hospital, a properly unique piece of Guernsey history, built under a field using forced labour by prisoners of war, with many losing its lives during its construction. They're paying homage to them today, as are Guernsey's vintage classic tractor club, with an official, actual, proper World War II tractor, although the drivers just struggle to get it out of gear. It's all right, we all happen, we all make mistakes. Battle Cancer Guernsey going past with their 40s Field Hospital, being followed by Grow Limited. They've decorated their Grow truck with floral decorations and bunting, flags waving, as they celebrate Guernsey's 80th anniversary at the end of the occupation. Following Grow, we have Farming Friends with a big old tractor covered in bunting, flags, and those big Union Jack tyres. Another ripple of applause rolls out as the tractors make their way past Picket House and towards Guernsey's south coast. Remember, keep both lanes clear, because they will be heading back past once again if you missed it on the first time past. I mentioned it earlier, but wherever you are celebrating today, wherever you are celebrating Liberation Day from, do let us know. I want to know how far liberation has spread across the globe. How many places are treated to a wonderful day like this here in Guernsey. If you can see just about entering your screen now, heading down past the shops, past Greasy's, past M&S, and heading towards us here at Picket House, we have the Loveridge Ward with a Call the Midwife float and all things maternity. We have the CI Occupation Society with an SS Vega built in conjunction with Clip and Norman Piet. Today's cavalcade proudly sporting floats, vintage cars, tractors, pedestrians, and members of Guernsey's wartime generation, still going strong and still making all of us proud. Now we're going to have the parish floats making their way past us soon. All of the parishes have made an entry. Forest, St Andrews, St Martin's, Tordeval, the Constables of the Vale, the Cattell Parish, St Sampson's, St Peter Port, and St Saviour's. Ripples of applause, cheers, and a sea of waving flags is all I can see as I look down. I look up, Guernsey's east coast, heading north. Here we have the SS Vega, constructed by the CI Occupation Society and pulled by a very old Massey Ferguson tractor. Following them up, we have Churches Together Torteval, 12 representations of youth groups, Torteval Youth Choir and Ignite Group, as a series of tooting horns heads closer and closer to us down here at Picket House. The floats have started heading back up north as well, so if you missed one on the way down, you'll catch it on the way back up. An original Fiat 500 there, not one of the new ones, one of the old ones, with what seems to be an empty cage on top. I'm hoping that whatever was in there is still in there. Procession featuring accurate era dress and some genuine uniforms that are as old as our Liberation Day. 80 years of celebration and commemoration. The Berry family going past, and the Yates and Gray family, as we head into our portion of classic cars getting ever closer. Another Massey Ferguson tractor passing us here at Picket House. If you are just tuning in to our coverage of the Liberation Day 2025 Cavalcade, what took you so long? You've missed so many already, but don't worry, there is still so much more to come. And what a treat it is as the St Andrew's Parish Church passes by, celebrating 80 years of liberation. Following St Andrew's, we've got St Martin's and their representation with St Martin's Parish School style float. You can hardly see the flatbed. On the side, a list of the school children from St Martin's that were evacuated in 1940 and placed in homes across the UK. Following St Martin's, we have Torterville, with the liberation of Torterville, as they've named it, created by Dr. Nicholas Brown, depicts a Torterville scarecrow seeing Hitler off and welcoming in the British troops. Up next, we have the Constables of the Vale, commemorating all of those who escaped by boat in 1940 and 1945. Catal Parish is rounding past the filter now, heading past us here at Picket House. They're celebrating freedom using Vazon Bay as their focus. The bay was heavily fortified, and we now use the beach obviously for sand racing and of course enjoying Guernsey's beautiful weather. Following Catal Parish, we have St Sampson's, with a truck representing the boat on the parish flag, flying proudly on Guernsey's east coast. Flags waving from those inside its bed. Next up, from St Peter Port, we have a float blessed on the 8th yesterday at 6:30 in Church Square. The float's a model of the church that was originally built in 1995 for that year's Liberation Day. So 30 years later, on the 80th anniversary, Julie Bogor, whose father built the original, is attending, and I'm sure we'll be pleased to share a memory or two. You can see plumes of smoke erupting from the St Saviour float, being pulled along by a bright blue tractor with flags and bunting waving. If you're here on the streets of St Peter Port, you will know how lively it truly is. It is bustling, a proper hive of activity and a proper way to commemorate and to celebrate. We've got a couple more floats still left to arrive. We have BBC Guernsey with theirs, which is Airwaves Across the Waves, which is a celebration of the important role for the organisation. They'll be entering your screen soon. We've got, as is common on Guernsey's east coast, a little bit of traffic. But hey, treat it as a chance to see these floats up close and personal, with the flags waving and smiles abound for those on board. Soon we will be seeing the classic military vehicles and the motorcycles the ones that were date pre-1946. There's 174 of them in total, so I might not be quite as liberal with the name dropping. But we're going to see Triumphs, Ariels, Fordsons, Humbers, Morris. Plenty for anyone who's interested, entertained and enthralled by the classic military vehicles and motorcycles. The steam, the representative steam pouring out on this float really helps sell that imagery and that history dating 80 years ago. Once again, welcome to our coverage. If you're just joining us here on the 80th anniversary of Guernsey's Liberation Day, a celebration and a commemoration of those who gave so much to give us so much. Once again, if you have someone in your family with a story to tell, make sure you listen, make sure you remember. Soon we will be joined by the Twinkle Bus hosting Liberation Day evacuees, occupies, as they make their way back up the east coast and heading towards North Beach. Now there's a collection of static displays for you. If you want to see any of these vehicles up close and personal, you're going to have to head here into Pierpont. You're going to have to head to town. But there are a variety, a veritable smorgasbord of static displays for you to get up and close and personal with the floats, the military vehicles. It seems there may have been a slight issue. The BBC Guernsey float has been overtaken by the Norman Piet float. It's a little bit early for the Guernsey Grand Prix. Following the Norman Piet float, we can see a member of St John Guernsey performing his role today on bike, making sure that everyone has a safe and happy Liberation Day. We see here the Norman Piet float passing by, Guernsey flags flown proud as they're greeted by a sea of waving Union Jacks and Guernsey flags from those who line St Peter Port streets. There is still so much going on today. Something for everyone. There's musical treats, there's thoughtful commemorations and moments of contemplation, and of course all of them have that theme of liberation. We can see a member of the Norman Piet float crew giving out sweets to the island's children. A touch of, again, what those children, those Guernsey children experienced 80 years ago when they were told of liberation the day before during Winston Churchill's address. And then so many put into tractor trailers and escorted to the eastern coast, greeted by Tommies bearing sweets and tasty treats, marking the end of the occupation and Guernsey being freed from the grips of the Germans. We can see on our screen floats making their way back up and towards their destination for a static display. However, there does seem to be one float that may have had a few technical issues here on the East Coast. They were overtaken by the Norman Piet float. And if you're here on the East Coast, you will hear John Randall booming his support for everyone taking part in today's cavalcade. soon we will be joined by the military vehicles and the motorcycles, all pre-1946, with Dodge, Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, Harley, Fordson, BSA, VW, Hillman, and a selection of other classic vehicles. We'll then be joined by the civilian vehicles, the first of which is a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. All of these classic civilian vehicles will also be pre-1946. And we've got 58 of them to add to the 170 plus motorcycles that are taking part in today's cavalcade. Following those civilian vehicles. And if you look to the sky, there is R4D ready for duty. They are currently on a very important mission, bringing closure to islanders and those in Europe who may not have had a finished story. They are travelling 12,000 miles. In specific, they are bringing closure for one island family after 80 years, providing a rubbing of gravestones from men who lost their lives during the occupation and during World War II. Wherever you're watching from today, I hope you are having a glorious Liberation Day, Guernsey's very own special day, celebrating and commemorating. Wherever you are in the world, make sure you bring a little slice of liberation to your patch. From the sky we can see how busy Guernsey's eastern coast is today, how busy and bustling the streets of St. Peter Port are. Look at the streets, lined with people. And once again, a little safety reminder, as the vehicles are making their way around, as they are proceeding as they should, please do not step into the road, please do not run in front of the floats, and please do keep an eye on young children to make sure that everyone has a safe and happy Liberation Day. If you missed R4D ready for duty, do not worry, because they will be performing another lap. They're doing 2 clockwise laps of the island today as part of Liberation Day, commemorating and celebrating 80 years at the end of the occupation and 80 years of freedom from German rule. It's a beautiful day here on Guernsey's eastern coast. The sun shining brightly. There's a slight nip in the air with a biting wind, but that is not going to spoil anyone's day here in Guernsey today.
You've got a day off on St. John's today. No, working tonight. Begin tonight. Keep up the good work. We're slowing those great guys.
There is so much more on offer today on Liberation Day, and I hope you are making the most of it, no matter where you are or what you're doing. Just make sure to celebrate the right way and do Guernsey proud. As we look from the skies, we can see the lines, the crowds. They don't end in town proper. They don't end in St. Peter Port Centre. They spread. You can see the crowd still gathered at Salary Corner as they pass their way around and down east coast of Guernsey. As the floats are making their way back up and heading towards their statics displays, you can hear bells ringing, crowds cheering, and you can see the people smiling. In fact, even the float that appears to have had a few technical issues on Guernsey's eastern coast, still full of smiles, still full of joy. The people surrounding it, draped in Guernsey flags and Union Jacks. smell the diesel, you can smell the petrol of these vehicles passing by. It's an assault on the senses, but it's one that we are all welcome to and we all savour. Now there are hundreds more vehicles for you to enjoy on today's cavalcade. 174 military vehicles and motorcycles are currently making their way towards St. Peter Port proper, heading towards Salary Corner and heading towards the celebrations that line the streets here in town. We can see a selection here entering our screens. Leading the way for the military vehicles is a BSA M20, followed by a Triumph 5SW and a Triumph 3HW. All of these vehicles, these military vehicles, the military motorcycles, the classic civilian vehicles, all of them are pre-1946. All of them have been around for 80 years. They've been around for as long as Liberation Day has. There's a lot of family effort going in, as we see on the vehicle lists. Groups of Guernsey families, names we're all familiar with. Your Breos, your Fallets. They're all taking part in today's display. They take a moment just outside of St. Peter Port proper. We see them lining up and ready to complete their entryway into town along the eastern coast and towards the cheering crowds that are here to welcome them. Whatever you are up to today, I hope you are enjoying the sunshine here in Guernsey. If you're further afield, I hope you're enjoying the sample of sunshine from Guernsey. On our very own special Liberation Day. Here we see some of the floats that have completed their journey and they are awaiting their static display. The penny farthing from earlier, the travel trident float, as they make their way back and await crowds of islanders, crowds of the public to go and take a closer look. If you're more of a fan of what's in the air than what's on the roads, well then you've been in for a treat today as well. Earlier, treated to 2 laps of the island from a Hurricane and a Harvard, both which graced our skies and graced the skies of Europe during the war years. We've also had R4D perform its first lap of the island. It's due for one more, and that's on a very special mission. I don't know if you may have picked that up, but there was just a cheer from a microphone, a young child saying Happy Liberation Day, its voice booming across the eastern coast, which received a ripple of applause from those here. We've got the last remaining float going as it makes its way across our screens with the light at the end of the tunnel. Celebrating 80 years of liberation, of freedom, and the end of the occupation. I've mentioned it a couple times already. I told you you're going to get sick of it. But if you have a family member, if you have a relative, if you have an acquaintance, if you know someone who lived through evacuation, through occupation, through deportation, whatever it is, make sure you take the time to listen to their stories. Make time to listen to their memories. Make sure that those memories turn into oral histories and turn into recorded histories. so they're never forgotten and they're never lost. The floats that had made their way south through St. Peter Port, through the streets, waving and cheering past the Guernsey public. They're making their way back up towards their static display positions. You can see the streets absolutely packed with islanders looking to celebrate, visitors who've joined in on the fun, and everyone with a patriotic smile across their face. Here at Picket House we've had an absolute glorious view of the parade so far, of the cavalcade, of the pedestrians, the military floats. And if you look to the skies and you're on the eastern coast now, you will see Ready for Duty performing her second lap of the island. A second lap as she completes 12,000 miles trip, bringing closure to an islander with a gravestone rubbing. Their family has an end of a story now, thanks to that mission. Now, in the build-up to Liberation Day, my day job as a journalist, I have spoken to someone who was deported, Jill Chubb, and her experiences in Biberach-on-the-Rise. I spoke to Roland Duckman, someone who lived through the entire occupation. He was 7 years old when it started. And I've spoken to them both about the stories that they've heard, and the stories that they've lived, and the stories that they've told. And I spoke to my nan, Pamela Masterman, who was evacuated across the UK, spending time in many a city and picking up many an experience that I'm so glad she shared with me and my family. Those memories are important. They are crucial and they are vital for Guernsey. Thank you once again for joining us on our coverage of the Liberation Day Cavalcade 2025. 8 decades worth of freedom from the German occupation. 80 years of liberation from Nazi rule. And 80 years of commemoration and celebration for those who are still here in Guernsey to enjoy our special day. If you've been enjoying the sunshine on a glorious Friday here in Guernsey, well, it's just an extra little treat for Liberation Day, isn't it? An extra little treat. Once again, if you are here on the East Coast, please do clear the streets. Please do clear the lanes as the military vehicles and motorcycles, all pre-1946, make their way south and head towards our position here at Picket House and towards the cheering crowds, waving flags, smiles, or just offering a wave in general. Police escort making its way to ensure those streets are cleared. Please do not step out in front of the cavalcade. Please do not step out in front of the procession. And please do keep an eye on small children to make sure that they are safe and everyone is enjoying a very welcoming, very celebrated Liberation Day here in Guernsey. Once again, we are treated to 174 different military vehicles and motorcycles today. From America, from Canada, from the UK, and from Europe. All of which are being driven by islanders looking to properly make the most in celebrating Liberation Day. Leading the way is a Mr. Brouard on a BSA M20. Accompanied by a Mr. Harvey and a Mr. Charnley both on Triumphs, a 5SW and a 3HW. After the military vehicles, we're also going to be treated to a list and whole procession of civilian vehicles. Some extremely beautiful vehicles going to be making their way around. A Bentley Le Mans 4.5, a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost, Land Rovers, Morris, Citroën, all of them taking part in today's celebration of liberation. A big thank you for tuning in once again so far. Let us know if you've had a favourite float or a favourite vehicle pass by your screen, as a series of bubbles ascend to the sky as part of the Liberation Day celebrations. A big thank you once again to the volunteers who've helped make today happen. A big thank you to those who've given up their time, their effort, to make sure that today is a day of celebration and liberation. You can start to hear here at Picket House the sound of the marching feet as they head down the East Coast. You can hear the drums. You can hear them getting ever closer. The smell of petrol and diesel still lingers in the air here, and the sound of that marching getting closer, the sound of the old engines rumbling away. It's a proper feast and treat for all of the senses. Whatever you're up to here on Liberation Day 80, I hope you are having an absolute wonderful time. Remember to spend a moment and think about all those who lost so much, and then think about how thankful we are for an island that calls us home and offers such a great community. Soon enough, entering your screens, we will have a marching procession helping to commemorate and celebrate liberation. We've already had the static floats make their way around, pulled by tractor or trailer, and making their way around the coasts. They've headed up north once again, back to their destinations for their static displays. So if you fancy checking out any of the vehicles that are a part of today's celebrations, then make sure you make your way down to St. Peter Port, make your way down to town, and make sure that you join in on the wonderful festivities that are in store for us here in Guernsey. The drum beat gets ever closer here at Picket House. You can hear the feet, you can hear the drums as the marching band makes its way down Guernsey's east coast. Behind the marching band, you'll find a old Land Rover Discovery, blazoned with a gigantic poppy on the front as a marker and a memorial towards those who lost so much giving us so much. Behind the Land Rover emblazoned with a poppy, you'll find the first of the military vehicles, the military motorbikes, over 170 taking part into today's procession, cavalcade, and the celebrations that go with it. Flags being held aloft as the marching band edges closer. Flags waved with passion and patriotism as bubbles float through the sky. Joining the flags, cameras being left aloft, being held aloft, sorry, looking to capture just a moment of the celebrations going on here in St. Peter Port. You can feel the beat of the drum deep inside. It's an absolute experience being here in St. Peter Port today. It truly is. The marching procession heading past in 1940s Tommy dress, being escorted by Channel Seaways with a poppy emblazoned on the front and flags flying in the breeze. Here we have the first of the motorcycles, the first of the 170 odd military vehicles and motorcycles from pre-1946 entering your screen and heading down towards the south point of St. Peter Port. Following the bikes, we'll have a procession of the military vehicles, Land Rovers, Triumphs, Fords, Humbers, Morris, the lot, the absolute lot. The smell of that diesel and petrol, it properly fills your nostrils when they're stationary next to you. The era appropriate uniforms and dress, some genuine, some extremely good replicas, but all in the name of one thing and one thing only: commemorating and celebrating Liberation Day here in Guernsey. Our own special day. Our own special day to be patriotic of Guernsey. Smiles and waves from those on board the military vehicles as they make their way through St. Peter Port. The sound of their engines is something completely different. The vehicles on display here, these military vehicles and motorcycles, there's just something different to them compared to a civilian vehicle. The sounds they make, the rumbles they make, the emotions that they conjure as they drive past. And remember, if you want to take a closer look at any of these vehicles today, if you want to attend the static displays here in St. Peter Port, you're more than welcome to come and get a closer look, at all of these magnificent examples of pre-1946 machinery. And remember, it's these vehicles that carried heroes into battle and carried heroes from battle. They allowed people to give so much in the name of freedom and in the name of liberation. Once again, I welcome you to our stream. If you are just joining us, let us know where you are tuning in from today. Where have you brought liberation to? Are you somewhere out in Torteval? Or maybe you're even further afield than that? But let us know, where are you tuning in from today? Where are you celebrating Guernsey's liberation from? Let us know and get in touch. And remember, if you have someone who has a memory of the war years, has first-hand memories of occupation evacuation, deportation, and then liberation, please do remember to get their thoughts, get their memories, listen, take the time to speak with them about what they went through. Those memories are important beyond belief. They are what makes Guernsey Guernsey. And they deserve to go from memory to oral history to recorded history. Once again, 170 odd military vehicles as a back flag causes a bit of a cheer from the crowd. The smell of that diesel is thick. It's delightful, if I do say so. As we near the end of the military vehicles, 170, we will be joined by the civilian vehicles, so still plenty to enjoy here as part of the 2025 Cavalcade for Liberation Day 80. Many of these vehicles pre-1946 have been in Guernsey for years. The amount of work that goes into ensuring they're running properly, they're working properly, and that they're fit for display is unthinkable for someone who doesn't do it or doesn't go through it. Personally, never lent my hand to it, but I know people who have, and the amount of care, dedication and love that goes into maintaining, restoring and operating these vehicles is palpable. It has to be a passion project that comes from the heart, and Guernsey is so lucky that it has people with that kind of heart and that kind of passion. Part of the military vehicle procession includes Fords, Austins, Dodge. We've got vehicles from across America, across Canada, and of course across Britain. We have vehicles from France, from Germany, who all had crucial roles to play as the Allies fought on to achieve victory in 1945, 80 years ago. When Winston Churchill said, "Our dear Channel Islands to be freed," I wonder if he knew 80 years later the public of Guernsey would still turn out in droves to celebrate that sacrifice, to commemorate that sacrifice, and to celebrate our liberation from occupying forces. Passing us now is a big US GMC, blasting out era-appropriate music for the crowds who are lining the streets of St. Peter Port in celebration and commemoration. As the marching band heads back north, it's finished its route down south, and they are heading back north to continue the celebrations. We're treated to armoured vehicles, armoured cars, Land Rovers, Range Rovers, and of course the landing crafts displays that are prominent in St. Peter Port. An old RAF Bentley passing us on our screens now as it heads down south to complete its U-shape and head back north towards its static display. Horns beeping, horns tooting, sirens wailing, and engines revving. That's what you're getting when you're down here in St. Peter Port. You're getting this assault on the senses that is also welcome. And you can't help but smile when you see Guernsey's wartime generation waving from on top of floats, on top of vehicles. Now we've been treated to the Hurricane and the Harvard so far today, as well as ready for duty. If you missed them earlier, they're performing a very, very important role as part of the Liberation Day celebrations. They've been travelling 12,000 miles in order to bring closure to an islander who was missing part of the story. That story has now been completed, thanks to the work of Ready for Duty. If you'd like to learn any more about the events taking place here in St. Peter Port, you can head to liberation.gg with full guides of everything taking place on Guernsey's special day. Wherever you're celebrating from today, I hope you've made the most of Guernsey's very own special day. A day which we can really take time to think about what the people of this island went through 8 decades ago, 80 years ago. In fact, 80 years ago they were having celebrations of their own as they enjoyed their new reality of no longer being under the German thumb. Now these static displays, they're going to be taking part all across Guernsey's eastern coast today. At North Beach, at Albert, at Crown. So there's plenty of space and plenty of opportunity to get a little bit more up close and personal with these wonderful examples of wartime machinery. Military vehicles continuing to make their way down Guernsey's eastern coast through the streets of St. Peter Port, flanked either side by waving crowds and cheering crowds and islanders and members of the public who have turned out to town to show their respects, to commemorate and to celebrate. And soon we will be graced with the special classic vehicles, the civilian vehicles, who will be gracing us with their presence. The smell of diesel and petrol continuing to flow across town in St. Peter Port. The sound of the engines rumbling and grumbling, and the sound of the sirens wailing as they head down through St. Peter Port and get ready to take up their place at a static display. 170 odd vehicles as part of this procession. 170 military vehicles and motorcycles still running, still operating, thanks to the great care and dedication of the people of Guernsey who look after them and ensure that they are a beautiful reminder of what had come and what had happened here in Guernsey all those years ago. From our position here at Picket House, we can see some of the vehicles that had already taken part in their cavalcade. They've made their way to Crown Pier and are already parking up, being swarmed by islanders eager to get a little bit closer and see these beautiful machines up and close. The amount of people in 1940s era appropriate dress is warming to see as well. If you've got yourself dressed up and ready for the occasion, congratulations on helping make Guernsey's Liberation Day that all much more special. There's a beautiful selection of Allied vehicles taking part in today's displays, as far away as America, Canada, and of course from companies all across the UK and Europe, blazoned with Union Jacks, Guernsey flags, and slogans like one in front of me which says "God save the King." If you have been celebrating Liberation Day from further afield, if you've been marking the occasion in your own special way, let us know. Drop us a comment. We want to know, where are you listening from? Where are you watching from? And how far has Liberation Day spread across the globe? Big smiles on the faces of those aboard these military vehicles, making their way past the crowds. Their arms must be getting tired now, surely, from the amount of waving they've been doing. But with the smiles on their faces, you'd never know. If you've enjoyed today's cavalcade so far, well, guess what? There's so much more on offer across Guernsey today. You can check out liberationday.gg for more information, and for all of the events that are taking place across Guernsey this afternoon and into the evening. If you've organised your own celebration, I hope you're having an absolute wonderful day, making the most of Guernsey's very own special day to get patriotic and to celebrate and commemorate in style. More of these vehicles are heading towards Albert Pier in front of me. I can see them cycling through and finding their place for the static display as the procession continues to make its way along Guernsey's eastern coast road and heading towards their place for the afternoon and evening. Sorry, I got distracted by a woman waving a clacker around. There's a proper festival vibe here in Guernsey today. There's a proper festival vibe here in St. Peter Port. There are people waving and throwing lacquers and flags and just having an absolute celebration of liberation. Now, I've mentioned it a few times. I'm going to mention it again. If you have someone in your life who lived through World War II, if you have someone who lived through the occupation, evacuation or deportation, make sure you turn those memories into recorded and oral histories. They last longer, and let's be honest, they are a part of Guernsey. They are a part of what makes Guernsey Guernsey. That history. Now, if you're a big fan of military vehicles, but you are a bigger fan of civilian vehicles, well, hey, there's an absolute treat in store for you today, with 58 civilian vehicles making part of the procession, a part of the cavalcade, led by Michael and Heather Fatturini in a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. There's also Hispano Suzia Alfonso VIII, a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost 2 from Amanda Mundy, and then a Citroen 5 HP Cabriolet leading the way for the civilian vehicles, and they will be joining us down here on the East Coast in just a few moments' time. Looking up and north towards the Weybridge roundabout from our point here at Picket House, you can see a sea of people celebrating and commemorating. You can see the vehicles in their masses helping to celebrate and commemorate the day properly. Guernsey obviously joined today by royalty, by members of the armed forces, by visitors looking to take part in the celebrations. Whoever you are, if you're here in Guernsey celebrating Liberation Day, happy Liberation Day. Happy day for Guernsey. The last of the military motorcycles passing us now as they head down south and again towards their places for their static display later on. If you're enjoying Liberation Day but you're not quite feeling the patriotic spirit just yet, head down to St. Pierre Port. It'll get you there. The amount of flags being flown. I've seen Guernsey flags, countless amounts. Union Jacks, English flags, Scottish, UK, Welsh flags from across the Allies, across the Allied forces being flown proudly today.